Hey everybody, it's Lavender Town. Sorry this video is a little late. I was at home celebrating my birthday, so I was kind of slacking off, but I promise I'll make it up to you. So today I wanted to talk to you about light boxes and how they can help you make your traditional art sort of act and look like digital art. So this little light box was sent to me by a seller on Amazon, and I actually am replacing my old light box with this one just because this one's a lot lighter. Also, I was really happy about the plug-in cord. It goes sideways rather than long ways, so it doesn't take up like all the space of your what's that little like extension cord thing. And yeah, it's super light and it's super easy to use, and it has like 3 different intensities of brightness, which is also cool. So basically how I use a light box is whenever I have a sketch that I really like but it's on a crappy piece of paper, I just take a nice piece of paper and I tape it on top of my sketch, and as you can see, the light box shining the light through is allowing us to see the sketch underneath. So if you want your line art to look digital, one of the most important things to do is to make sure there's no evidence of a sketch underneath, because obviously in digital you just do your sketch on a different layer and turn it off. The way you can simulate this in real life is to use a light box. You can also see that I'm using it to center this sketch so it's not toward the top of the piece of paper like it was on the graph paper. So now it's like perfectly composed, and yeah. It also helps you see very clearly where you're inking. Obviously I've made the sketch basically look lighter than it was before because it's having to go through this sheet of paper. It's at the lowest intensity of brightness I think right now, so that's allowing me to hide a bit of the sketch and give me more emphasis on the ink I'm doing on top. I'm using a micron pen. They're my favorite, even though they dry out really fast, because they're super smooth and they come in lots of different thicknesses, and also because they dry almost instantly. I'm left-handed, so I often have a lot of problems with inking or paint or anything that stays wet for more than a couple of seconds because I drag my hand all over it and then it gets smudged. And obviously you don't want that in your illustration if you want it to look digital, because in digital there's no worries about that. That's one of the things I like the best about digital. So as you can see, speaking of having your hands over everything, I covered up part of what I was drawing as I was drawing it. If I do another one of these, I'll try to angle the camera in such a way that you can see me when I'm actually inking. Sorry about that. Hopefully this is still fun to watch and helpful. This is actually a drawing that was decided by my patrons. They get to choose a request of something I draw every month, so this time they chose a humanized Pokemon, and I chose Mimikyu. Mimikyu is one of the new Pokemon from Pokemon Sun and Moon, which I'm playing currently. I actually played it on the airplane yesterday, and I love that game so far. It's really, really fun. It's quite easy, I find. This one, for some reason, I'm finding this one easier than usual, but that doesn't really take any of the fun out of it. I just love Pokemon games, obviously, because my name's Lavender Town. And yeah, anyway, back on track here. I'm just being careful to make sure that my thickest areas of line art are where I want the eye to go. I've talked about this a bit in previous inking videos that I've done, but whenever I'm doing deep details in the background, I'm actually switching over to a 0.005 micron. It's one of the smallest microns I've ever seen, and it allows the background elements to fade into the background. Also, details like the little swirls in her eyes are done with the really, really small micron. It just allows for the picture not to look too muddy. And when you switch the sizes of the pen you're using, that also can make it look a little bit more digital, because obviously in digital you have no limitations on the size of your pen. So switching it up every now and then in your traditional arts will also make it look more like you have the freedom of a computer. The funny thing is, I find a lot of people who have to use traditional want their art to look digital, and people who use digital all the time want their art to look traditional, so it's actually good to blend sort of features of both into your work when you can. I think there's a lot of people who like the hand-done touch as well. So yeah, then you can just turn the light box off and you see we have this pristine inked piece. So that's actually really nice. You don't have to try to erase all of the sketch underneath, and now it's on this nice piece of paper that can take marker well. My next step for making a traditional drawing look digital is to use Copic markers. I know they're kind of expensive, but you actually don't need a lot of them. And the thing that's so great about them is they just never look streaky because of their high alcohol content, or some other reason. I'm not really sure why they're so great, but like they just lay down so flat. This is not sponsored by Copic, by the way, though if Copic wanted to sponsor me, I would happily do a video about Copics because I totally love them. I wish they were more affordable, but like I said, you actually don't need very many because they blend together into other colors pretty nicely. And in this one, I think I only use like 1 or 2 Copics. As you can see on the edge where I tore the piece of paper out of the sketchbook, I did a little dot of the yellow to make sure it was the kind of yellow I wanted for her hood. You should always do that with any type of marker or paint because sometimes it can look really different on the piece of paper you're using, and if there's some sort of problem with your paper, like if it's too thin, you'd rather find that out probably on the side where you can cut it off. Then in the middle of your inked sketch that you worked so hard on. So that's the other good thing about using a light box. You still have that sketch. If you really mess up your inking or something, you can just take that piece of paper off and try again with a fresh sheet, and you haven't hurt your sketch at all. So that's another thing I like about using the light box. Light boxes are actually most commonly used by animators who are doing like the traditional flip book sort of animation by hand, but I always use them when I'm doing illustration outside of the computer because I'm so attached to having layers to work with. So I'm using some watercolor pencils now. They'll look definitely not digital when you first lay them down, but when you put a little bit of water over them, they'll smooth out kind of like the Copic, and it will start to look digital again. I'm using Derwent watercolor pencils. I really love them. My sister got them for me, so I actually don't know how much they cost, but I use them a lot. You can also use them in, I used to reface Monster High dolls. I would use nail polish remover and remove the face paint from their little faces, and I would redraw their eyes and stuff and make them look really cute. That was really fun. The only problem was I had to use really toxic chemicals to seal the painting, so I don't do that too often now that I live in a dorm because I'd probably suffocate myself. So yeah, don't mess around with dangerous chemicals or dangerous paints if you can avoid it. I'm just trying to keep the colors pretty associated with ghosts whenever I'm breaking away from the Mimikyu color palette that we already know of, the yellow and the black. And then I just peel it away from the sketch very carefully because otherwise I'll tear the paper underneath. Obviously graph paper is super fragile. So I take away the light box at this point because I do not want to get water on the light box. That would be bad. You then just take a wetted paintbrush and obviously don't put any paint on it, just water, and go over all the areas that had the watercolor pencil. Watercolor pencil is really cool because a lot of people's main complaint about watercolor is it's hard to control, but with watercolor pencil it's really easy. You just lay it down as a pencil and then go back over it with water, and then voila, you have watercolor that's exactly where you wanted it to be. Turning it back into watercolor will make it look more digital as well. Obviously the little grit that you see when you put down a pencil is something that immediately tips someone off to it being a traditional piece of work. It's funny because when people are working digital, that's actually something you sometimes try to put into your work, but that's kind of a grass is always greener thing. I think in digital, people are always trying to make their work look like it was done by hand, and then oftentimes people who are doing it by hand admire the sort of clean look of digital. So it's actually good to put in elements of both into your work if you can. So I'm just trying to very smoothly lay down the water without pushing around the paint too much or making it look too splotchy. Ideally, I think if I really wanted it to make it look super digital, I would just stick with Copics, but I actually didn't have that many Copics on hand, so I thought I'd try it out with these Derwent colored pencils. And I gave Mimikyu's little hood a nice Pikachu blush, and sort of blushed the tips of the cape just for a little interest and texture. And then we're basically done. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me draw in real life outside of the computer, and hopefully I will see you later this week. A big thank you to my patrons, including Den, Brock, Juan Alvarez, Chartype, Libliblibli, Adrian Delport, Adrian Morales, at Liv Likes to Draw, Painamel, Kate Meekins, and Muffins McGee. Thank you guys so much for your support.